Okay, here's a little example of what number one would look like. Number one is just like this bottom part of the house. Now, granted, you're gonna have a big piece of fabric. I'm just doing it on this little sample piece just to show you how that's gonna line up. This, I've marked for Through the Woods on a 6x12 hoop. I've already marked the first stitch of number 2. And I'm just going to show you where it lines up. According to the directions, the start mark is going to line up at the top of this roof line, and the end mark is right here. So you need to be able to sew without thread all the way down this line so that I know you're lined up perfect for how you hooped your fabric. So this would point right here like this. And again, I'm going to just make sure that when I go to hoop it, I make sure that I'm on the straight line on my fabric is also on a straight line with my grid. Now, I just want to show you this little example because here's what I really want to show you. The reason I have you cut your fabric larger than what I said to, or if you're going to do it that technique, or if you're going to do a poly mesh border, see this like little, about a 3-inch border on each side? Because this hoop is off my fabric. If I line it up like this, I don't have any fabric here, but I do have the poly mesh. And if I had to line something up down here, I might have 2 inches down here with no fabric. So that's why we needed to cut. I either cut the fabric like 2 or 3 inches bigger all around, or I'm going to do a poly mesh border, which is what the directions say. This is the reason why. So and if I had to hoop something over here like this, you can see my fabric ends right here. If I don't have that poly mesh, then I have a big gap. And when you have a big gap like that, this is what happens. When you embroider something here, it pulls like this, and it pulls your fabric in. And then not only does it wrinkle it and pull it in, but then when you do the black outlining right here, the outlining doesn't line up because you've allowed the stitches to pull it in. So that's the purpose of this outer poly mesh border. Or if you don't want to do the poly mesh step, just cut your fabric like 3 inches bigger all the way around, and you can just use your fabric.
So you already went and got your first stitch for the second hooping.
Right, that's what that is, and that's what we talked about first. That was your first stitch of the second hooping, and it's going to line up right here again. So when this one lines up, and I'm not going to, even though it's touching that, I don't want to go cattywampus. I need to make sure that the lines on my grid are directly under the lines that I drew, and that's how you keep that straight. So that would be how you'd set up number 2.